Okay, so we've talked an awful lot this afternoon about BlackBerry's commitment to helping you build your businesses and what we see as this tremendous opportunity on the new platform. So now what I'd like to do is actually bring out 4 industry leaders who see this huge upside in mobile computing and startups that build for BlackBerry 10 and who are actively seizing those opportunities. So please welcome to the stage Sergio Cavalcante, the CEO of CESAR, Geoff Ledingham from Wavefront, Sergio, Alex Baker from Relay Ventures, one of the principals there. Hi, Alex.
Yep.
And Dave Feinleib from the Big Data Group and a serial entrepreneur in his own right. Hi, Dave. All right, so gentlemen, welcome to BlackBerry Jam, and thanks for joining us. Before I came to BlackBerry, I was an entrepreneur myself, so it's kind of a subject that's near and dear to my heart. And as I said earlier, we're in the process of transforming ourselves. So last year what we did is we tried to become the best business partner in mobile for developers, and if you saw the stats at the beginning of this session, I think we did a pretty good job of that. And this year, one of the things that we're really focusing on is expanding our focus to be not just the best business partner for mobile developers, but the best business partner for the mobile entrepreneur. So that's what we're here to talk about a little bit. Before we get into any kind of discussion, maybe you can each give yourselves a bit of an introduction and tell people what you do.
Dave Feinleib, serial entrepreneur, like you said, 5 startups under my belt, a couple venture-backed, a couple of bootstrapped. Highly recommend that if you've never bootstrapped before. And now I run something called the Big Data Group, where we look at opportunities in big data intersecting with other areas like mobile.
Cool.
I'm Alex Baker with Relay Ventures. We are an early-stage investor in mobile in mobile applications, software, a little bit of hardware. We place anywhere between $2 to $5 million into early-stage companies, and we're a $150 million venture fund with offices in Toronto and Menlo Park.
My name is Geoff Ledingham. I work at an organization called Wavefront. We're a not-for-profit. We're based in Canada. We're partially funded by the government, but our whole reason for being is to help mobile and wireless technology companies grow their business. And we do that by pairing them with technical resources and business resources, which makes us unique.
Hi guys, my name is Sergio Cavalcante. I'm the CEO of CESAR, a not-for-profit company based in northeast of Brazil, who is just making 17 years old today. And we managed to open 200 companies in northeast of Brazil with a total of $500 billion income so far.
Great. Cool. Thanks. So I can tell right away that mobility is important to you, Geoff.
Absolutely.
But how important is mobility in your businesses, gentlemen?
Well, I'll start. If it wasn't for mobility, I wouldn't be here today. So we only invest in mobile-related companies. Every company that's in our portfolio touches mobile in some way, shape, or form, and it is critical and core to our investment thesis.
Cool.
In the big data area, we look at how big data relates to mobile. So this intersection of big data with mobile as a device that can sense your personal health. It can sense where you are. It can sense lots of different data. And so combining mobile and big data together, I think, presents some really, really interesting opportunities.
Great.
Well, mobility brings technology everywhere. I mean, you're not stuck in your desk. You're not stuck in your room. You can have access to the digital age everywhere where you are, and in education, in your car, in your welfare.
Cool. So Dave, you've talked a little bit about the intersection of big data and mobility, but what other types of technologies are the rest of you keeping an eye on these days?
We're looking, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the retail space with mobility, particularly when you combine that with location-aware apps. There's a bit of a disconnect, though, in terms of what we're capable of from a technology standpoint, and what's being accepted by the general public, and I have a couple examples about that. So in Guatemala, there was a very trendy, youth-oriented athletic shoe retailer called Meatpack. Don't ask me how they came up with the name. But they ran a mobile campaign. They've got a pretty loyal following. So they have a software application that's on smartphones that they use to engage with their customers. And they ran a campaign called Hijack. So what they did was at one particular mall, they geo-fenced all of their competitors' stores, so the Nike store, the Puma store, whatever. And then as soon as one of their fans walked into the store, they would push them a time-sensitive discount. So it started at 99%, and then every second that ticked by, they would go down by 1. So you had all these kids tearing through the mall to try and get to the meatpack store to cash in on the biggest discount possible on the shoes. So that's an example of a really aggressive one.
New sales strategy.
Yeah.
It's a very aggressive use. That's sort of one of the nightmare scenarios with geofencing, right? Is unwanted advertising. I mean, you hear that one coming up all the time. Consumer fears.
Yeah, they had 600 people hijacked, I guess, from the other stores in a week. So yeah, it seemed to work.
600 people hijacked.
Yep.
So it's a very effective use of geofencing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about yourself, Alex? What are the kinds of things that you're looking at?
Well, we're looking a lot now at, I would say, leveraging the smartphone as the backbone and connection to the internet, and devices that are connected to the internet through the smartphone itself. So things like sensors. Dave talked a little bit about monitoring your health using things like the Fitbit or the Nike Fuel Band. Headphones that go in your ears, or wearable sensors that we've seen inside shirts, things that you put inside your shoes. There's also other opportunities that we're looking at around the connected home and building automation that, where we think, and we've invested in a company called Ecobee that allows you, similar to Nest, to control your thermostat from anywhere in the world. And that's just the beginning of things. We're going to be seeing connected devices in homes, you connecting devices such as your washing machine, your fridge, your lights, basically everything from soup to nuts inside your home. I think probably in the next 3 to 5 years, and this is going to be true for healthcare as well, and very true in large commercial buildings where there's a much easier business case to be made for saving money on hydro and such.
Interesting. So you touched on something that I think is an important area maybe for this audience, which is innovation in mobility around the enterprise as well. I mean, you've talked a little bit about big data. You've talked about cost savings in large buildings and so on. Where do you see some of that stuff happening?
Well, actually, what's interesting is as the cost of devices comes down, we see growth happening in areas we never before would have considered. So I think it's conceivable that in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see line workers, you're going to see blue-collar workers basically with cheap devices in their hand, helping them complete the tasks that they have to complete and putting check marks and redirecting them to critical missions. Yeah. I don't think that doesn't exist today. And when the devices come down to $50, $40, $30 connected by Wi-Fi in a contained area, I think we're going to see a huge proliferation of activity in that sector.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah, when you look at the sales area, we might think about sales as all happening on the web now, but there's still companies with thousands and thousands of salespeople that are out mobile, having to sell door to door, and so that kind of application could be really impacted by a mobile device, plus the cloud, plus the right data to inform the salesperson where to go and who to call on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Are you seeing anything in Latin America that's different, Sergio?
Yeah, the main problem in Latin America is that we are running out of entrepreneurs because the education over there is not that general. So it happens that if you are a qualified person, then you have a job. So we are running out of entrepreneurs nowadays, and the risk taken over there is not that high as well because the infrastructure problems is so high that guys prefer to invest in infrastructure. But there are good things that can be done in terms of cooperative things as well. For example, there's a shipyard close to Recife, and the shipbuilders, they are inside the steel maze. And how do you know if they're alive? If you connect the cell phones between them and make a Wi-Fi mesh, for example, and use the accelerometer, you know that they are moving and they can connect to each other so that you know that they are alive and where they are. So we are trying to do things like this with the mobile phones to make things better with it.
We're actually seeing that same technology being used in the mining sector for miner safety, and they not only do they connect all of the individual miners up, but they also have sensors on all of the heavy equipment too, so they can track that stuff.
Remote repair is also a huge category now. I mean, if you look at the best example is BBM chat, and enabling people to actually conduct chat when they are, fixing planes or in a mine, and can zoom a camera on there and provide remote support that ordinarily couldn't or otherwise would not have been able to be done.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen actually some of those scenarios already with groups of people that will go in and do large installations in a particular location. There's a crew of people working on site, and BBM chat gets used to enable them to communicate amongst themselves very quickly. And when I once asked one of the entrepreneurs that I know who was doing this, why BBM, he said, well, because text just isn't reliable. I mean, BBM lets you know that it's been read. All the features that we love from a consumer perspective turn out to be incredibly important in those kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, that's cool.
Anyway. Any specific trends that you see in the market, in the next 2, 3, 4 years that developers should be considering in this room as they're exploring, the possibilities with mobile computing? Why don't we start off with you, Geoff?
Yeah, sure. I think it's already been touched on a little bit, but we were talking about it backstage. Wearables is a huge growth sector. So these are all of the fuel bands, the watch interfaces like the Pebble that we saw on Kickstarter. So that's an area to really keep an eye on. So you think that it's tough designing for a smartphone screen, the UI for a smartphone screen. Try doing it for a 1-inch square phone, watch. So that'll be a real challenge and a real growth opportunity.
And do you think those devices will actually, carry a display long term, or will they be, slaved in some way the way to the mobile that you carry?
Yeah, I think it's more of an extension to this smartphone at this point. Yeah. Who knows where it'll go from there? But yeah, I think that most of the heavy lifting will be done by a larger device that can be in your backpack or whatever.
Got it.
Everything's going to be a slave to the mobile phone. Seriously. I mean, it's going to be the backbone, I think, to everything. If you look at the computing power that's in there today, dual-core processors, who knows where it's going to be in 2 to 3 years, but the fact is that this thing is more powerful today than the computer I had when I was in university.
I don't know if there are any fitness buffs in the audience, but I mentioned I was training for this crazy event called the Ironman, and all of these people I train with use this app called Strava, and that is a mobile device app where you are tracking the hills you climb and the runs you do and just sort of everything about all of your activities. And I think that's a great example of how do you use this consumer technology with the data, with your mobile device. That's really the enabler for this.
Got it. And then so what happens to the data on the back end? I mean, I've often wondered. You gave me a Nike fuel band, and so I'm sitting there logging all of this information from the Nike fuel bands. What's Nike doing with my information?
I don't know. Are you wearing the fuel band?
No, it bricked. Sorry. Anyway.
I do think you had another interesting point, though, on this consumerization trend, which is, when I'm thinking about building apps today or coaching entrepreneurs, people have this expectation that the app will just work. Right, and it's really, I think when we all used to build apps in years past, it was, oh yeah, people figure it out. And now it's just got to work. They have a different expectation, even in a business environment, of how the app will function. So I think that's an important.
When you're spending $1 or $2 on an app, if it doesn't work right away, you throw it away.
You're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you could find a lot of use in urban areas, for example, in terms not only personal, individual use, but you can have real-time information about what's going on in the city in terms of temperature, in terms of security, mobility, and you can mention. But I mean, there's a lot of things going on. We're going to run a contest now in Recife for urban hacker, where you invite people to go there and bring some mobile applications to understand more what's going on in the city.
Yeah. Kind of like the way that Waze tracks traffic patterns, right? It's very social, and but it provides incredibly valuable information, and it's all done by crowdsourcing, by human beings. Yeah.
And then you layer in the retail component where you've got the sponsored waypoints that you can present offers to the person as they're on their way to the destination. So if they're going to the airport, you might present them with a parking coupon or something.
A lot of different opportunities for that kind of stuff, I think. We've seen a couple of applications which are rideshare applications in places where, for example, taxis are really expensive. So let's get a cab together. Yeah. Sorry?
Could have used that last night.
You could have used that last night here in Orlando? Yeah. Okay. So if you're what advice? I mean, you guys have been working with entrepreneurs for a while. If I was going to go start a company today, what advice would you give me? No, not me, somebody else.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on who you are, where you are, and what your market is. If you're someone who can go raise money and raise a lot of it, then go raise as much as you can. And that's a very small number of people in the world. And for the rest of us, you go out and keep the burn really low, go get some traction, prove that the thing works, whether it's consumers or business users, and then when you've got scale, the investors will come to you.
And that is true, by the way. Good PR goes a long way. But the other thing that at least I find these days, is have proof points, because it is very inexpensive to develop your first iteration, your most viable product out of the gate, and demonstrate there's uptake and that it's a thin wedge in a big pie. So one thing that I find entrepreneurs fail to do oftentimes is talk about what the grand vision is. They can talk intricately about the details of this application that's been downloaded X number of times and the engagement that they've witnessed over a small period of time, but there has to be a large vision around that.
One of the other things that we see a lot of in the space that I work in is entrepreneurs coming to us with a technology looking for a market rather than the other way around. So don't come with an idea, come having solved some problem or at least identified a problem and quantify that problem. You have to make sure that there's enough customers out there that can that you're building a solution for.
And that can reach those customers. I mean, sometimes you know where they are, but you don't have access to them.
Sure.
You don't have the proper connection to the consumer, so you can't sell your product.
Yeah.
And the great news for this audience is I really think this is the age of the developer. I mean, you have a time when there are all these devices available, you have a huge number of consumers with access to the devices, and the cost, as everyone has mentioned, has come way down of getting distribution and building. And so to be a developer at this particular time in history is really great timing. It's a very fortuitous time to be able to go build stuff. So
Makes sense, makes sense. Any last things you'd like to say before to the crowd?
We have a Q&A section.
Sorry?
Remember the
Yeah, well, I'll mention that. There will
We'll
be a
hold it.
Q&A session. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But if you want to send these guys questions, there'll be a Q&A session a little bit later. Tweet them to Jam73, hashtag Jam73, and we'll take those at that point in time at the Q&A session. Okay? Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Alex.
Appreciate you being here.
thank you.